So I'm with Jane Dodds, the leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats. Jane, the Senate elections are just around the corner, May the 6th. I guess you're hoping that people will come out in droves and vote for the Welsh Liberal Democrats.
Well, that's absolutely right. We are hoping that they'll vote postally or go to the ballot station safely and vote for the Welsh Liberal Democrats. We've got a great message, which is put recovery first. And that's our main emphasis. There's nothing else that matters right now except the economic recovery for mental health and recovery for our planet.
It's been a very strange year, obviously. We've seen a lot happening. A lot of people that question the kind of handling of the pandemic from national level, Westminster, to Senate level. What's your kind of slant on it? How do you view the way that it's been handled? In hindsight, could things have been done differently right at the beginning? Do you think lessons have been learned, or do you think we're still bumbling along sort of precariously and, not really that keyed up on what the future holds even?
Well, I think it's a really good question. And I think, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? If we all look back at our own lives and history, we could all do things differently. I think lessons have been learnt. And so for an example, here in Wales in this lockdown, it feels like it's been taken very slowly and the data has been analysed. And we've perhaps changed tack positively. If we look at even today's announcement around the reopening of indoor gyms, well, that's because the Welsh Government's had access to the scientific data, which has said, actually, the infections are dropping. So I think we have learnt the lessons. But if you were to say to me, could we have done things differently? I don't know. And I'm not going to be criticising either the Westminster government or Mark Drakeford here. I just think it was a really impossible, difficult situation, and nobody had a rule book for how you could follow. So yeah, I think we're in a great place. Obviously, with the vaccinations, that's really been amazing, and that would be a real positive. The only thing I would say is, our care workers and our health workers, we really do need right now, to be looking at their pay and conditions, to really recognise the role that they've played, but also to say a huge thank you and a vote of gratitude to them, and to really say that we value them, because I'm not sure that we did before the pandemic.
We're seeing almost an emptying of the purse from the Senate at the moment. Were you quite surprised at how much money became available all of a sudden to hand out willy-nilly? Well, it's been really interesting to see what the political will can do when it's needed. I mean, I'm not sure the money's been handed out willy-nilly. I think it's been really well measured. We've had the furlough scheme from Westminster, which has really kept everybody going who have not been able to go into work. We've seen businesses support it, but I think there should be more support for them, particularly going forward to the future, particularly our tourism and hospitality businesses. But I think, they have made the money available. They haven't held money back where it's needed. I just think that, right now going forward, I think there needs to be a secure commitment to how much money is going to be available, particularly to our businesses in tourism and hospitality. You're losing your one and only long-standing MS in Kirsty Williams. You lost your seat as the MP and you lost the selection for the Senate elections. Have you and the Welsh Lib Dems run your course in politics? Oh, my goodness, not at all. We've been here in Wales for a long time, over a century. We're not going anywhere. The Welsh Liberal Democrats are here to stay. We're campaigning hard. We've been delivering in the last 10 days or so. We're able to start door knocking from Monday. And the Welsh Liberal Democrats are those pavement politicians, the people who go out and really do meet people. And we're looking forward to that. So we're campaigning hard, and we're making sure we get our message out there, which is put recovery first.
Your manifesto is extremely comprehensive, and it's a hard read for even the most seasoned political analysts. Do you think the general mass of voters in Wales will take time to read that? Do you have an abridged version which addresses the main issues, the main areas of concern for most sort of working people in Wales? Is that something you'll be handing out?
We're absolutely looking at a manifesto launch, which will include a kind of sort of headline version. But there's two bits always to a manifesto, isn't it? There's the detailed costings and how we can implement programmes, and there's what we want to do for people. And what we want to do for people, three things: economic recovery, mental health recovery, and the recovery of our planet.
You've usurped the next question, which was that you have championed social issues and campaigned for change. Putting those aside, what are the three most radical changes you're championing for Wales?
Yeah, no, good question. So we're looking at £1 billion a year going towards the climate recovery. And that's a costed £1 billion, leveraging monies from private and public schemes, as well as looking at how we can use the money in a smarter way for green homes, for warmer homes. That's one, so £1 billion for the climate recovery. Second one is £100 million per year over 5 years for our towns. So really investing in our towns here in Wales. They've really kept us going, haven't they, during the pandemic? Those small businesses that have provided essential retail. But we need to make sure that our towns and our high streets are really there to thrive and to go forward into the future. And I think a third one is around our mental health services. We recognise the COVID time has actually brought incredible loneliness and incredible mental health pressures. And we want to see a 24/7 mental health crisis response, as well as having community responders who would be funded and supported and be able to meet the mental health needs of neighbours and friends.
In order to implement a lot of what you're saying in your manifesto, you would need to have a stronger presence in Westminster and at the Senedd. But looking at the polls, that really isn't going to happen, is it?
Well, polls are polls are polls, really. You know, polls can be very wrong. We, you know, if I spent my life kind of thinking about the polls, I wouldn't do anything. My view is forward-looking. We are campaigning hard. We are getting our message out there, and it's getting a good reception. We're focusing on businesses, family businesses, and small businesses. We're looking at mental health, and we're looking at our planet, and that is receiving a great reception.
COVID-19 has highlighted many things: inequalities, poverty, postcode lotteries, loss of freedoms, etc. Your manifesto doesn't really allude to COVID-19 very much at all. But are you concerned over some of the loss of liberties and the hard line taken by government and police forces in Wales as a Liberal?
We're always alive to the issues around challenging our way of life, our democracy, and the way that we can carry out our normal business. But COVID has not been a normal time, and it's an international pandemic. You know, I mean, you know, none of us have experienced anything like it before. Probably the last time we had this kind of need for a response was probably, you know, the Second World War in terms of Europe. So really, we do need to be proportionate. We do need to be measured. And I praise and the police. I think they've got an impossible role sometimes. And at the earlier days, they were being asked to do things even without protection and without their own health being taken into account. They were putting themselves at risk, and sometimes they still are. So you won't find me condemning the police. I support them. The leadership needs to be really clear, and we need to be absolutely seeing that our right to protest continues safely. and that our rights to take part in our communities is not curtailed in any way whatsoever.
Looking at education, and Kirsty Williams has attempted unsuccessfully almost to outlaw homeschooling, and not a very liberal approach. We didn't see the same ferocity of attack on homeschooling when most people in Wales found themselves in the same shoes as elective homeschoolers. I asked Lee Waters recently why Welsh Government were not ensuring that elective homeschool children were provided with the same financial and material benefits and opportunities as children at school. His answer was, if you opt out of the collective, you can't complain. What's your view on that? I mean, have you been looking at the homeschool situation in Wales? And, you have to look at these people have been electively homeschooling for so long, they've been demonized, and all of a sudden COVID comes along and everybody's homeschooling, and that demonization sort of vanishes. It doesn't seem fair, does it?
So homeschooling is a really important kind of part of our community. Nobody should be demonised at all. What we need to be making sure of outside of COVID is that homeschooling is safe. And the majority of homeschooling is absolutely safe. We've been in an extraordinary time, and we need to step back and have a measured response that's proportionate to some of the issues that have come out of COVID.
You talk about federalism and greater powers for Wales rather than decentralisation. Why not independence, going it alone like a number of successful small countries?
I understand totally why people want to see independence as the answer to many of the challenges that we have, and what they saw and what they're seeing really is a Conservative Westminster government versus a Labour Welsh government who have responded in very different ways at times to the COVID pandemic. But independence is not the answer. And right now, with the recovery needed from COVID, we cannot do anything else but focus on the recovery. The idea that we could have two referendums, which is what is being proposed in order for us to get to independence, whilst we need to look at the economic recovery, is foolhardy. We cannot be diverted from looking at how we respond to the pandemic right now. I've got time for one more question.
I am the last one. If, as the polls suggest, Labour lose seats and there is a possibility of a coalition, would you consider throwing your hat in with the Conservatives and abolish the Welsh Assembly to make up that coalition government?
I am very clear that I am not favouring, supporting in any way abolishing the Welsh Assembly. My view, the Welsh Senedd, my view is that devolution has worked well in Wales. We need more devolved powers. We absolutely need to see a progressive discussions with Westminster that actually gives us more money and more powers here in Wales.
That's great. Jane Dodds, Welsh Liberal Democrats leader, thank you very much for speaking to us.